Welcome back to my SPs or Stargate Pioneers walkthrough edit channel on YouTube, and I am streaming this on Twitch. And what we're doing here is just walking through my edits, just like you would walk through a video game, so you can see how to edit a podcast. I am part of the GonnaGeek.com network. I co-host a podcast called Better Podcasting with Stephen John Drew, and we dedicate the podcast on how to podcast or how to make your podcast better for the hobby podcaster, the independent podcaster, the passion podcaster, those of you who do not have a team of editors and production staff behind you. So more than likely, if you're actually producing the podcast, you're doing all this on your own. So this is a walkthrough of how I do my edit in, first of all, Movie Studio, now Vegas Movie Studio 15.0 Platinum. And then I ported over to Audacity. I believe this is Audacity version 2.0.3, but most of the same things are going to apply to both of them. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. This is Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. number 260 in Audacity. It is about the Punisher. This is episode 4 of the Punisher. If you have not seen the Punisher, do not want to be spoiled about the Punisher, you need to go watch that before you watch this. But what we're doing here is the main segment on the Punisher. Did the short intro before leading up to it. And now this entirety up to about here is going to be the main segment. There are large segments of silence in the file here. And that's just because since it was exported from Movie Studio, what I did is I silenced all the bumps that were meant to differentiate the segments, because I wanted to make sure that the bumps weren't impeding my ability to edit the actual vocal part. So that is why there's these spaces, and conveniently, when I can tell about where the spaces are, I can go in and I could break by doing a Control-I and inserting a little break, and then using this time shift tool, just grab a hold of that part of the track and move it over to the left to separate it from the main part of the track. And then I will use the selection tool and I will double click on what remains of the segment here. And the first thing I'm going to do is truncate silence. But before we do that, let's just see how long this is. 32 minutes, 53 seconds. Do an Alt T, which is my short keys to bring up the truncate silence effect. You can also do so by going up to Effect, Truncate Silence. That'll bring up the same GUI interface here. I put a 0.85 second differentiation between, with a 3-person, 4-person panel podcast. 0.85 seems to be about the right level of silence to put in there over years of doing this, at least how we speak. You might end up putting more segments in there, or more silence in between some of the pauses if you want a more pregnant pause. Or if you're doing it on your own, you might not want to truncate silence that's less than 1.5 or 2 seconds. And there's a reason for that, because if you're on your own, you can't depend on somebody else coming in and picking up when you're taking a gulp of air. Literally, a gulp of air. I did mean that correctly, not a gulp of water, but a gulp of air. It takes a while to get that air in and then start over again. So anything less than 1.5 to 2 seconds when you're a solo podcaster is not actually going to be worth it. So anyway, 32 minutes, 53 seconds after you do truncate silence is brought down to 30 minutes, 55 seconds. Took about a minute and a half or 9 seconds worth of silence out of there. So the other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to turn the sync. This is sync lock tracks. I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to go ahead and move the track to the end of the bump. And then I'm going to zoom in and then go over to the beginning there. There's a little trick that I can use to get there by just playing what I've selected, and then we'll start right there, but I still have to go over to the left a little bit. And by previously doing this, I know that right around here in the tail end of the bump, this particular bump or stinger, because it's really stinger, it's less than 8 seconds long, that's where I want to start talking. So we'll see if that fits. I might have to move it a little bit. Into the punny. Oh, by the way, if you click up here in the time track anywhere, it will start playing from where you click. So I don't have to worry about selecting down here in the tracks and deselecting this bit, which is good because I'm moving that back and forth. In this particular case, it doesn't matter all that much because I know it's just one 30-minute long segment that I'm moving back and forth. But in case you have multiple tracks selected or multiple segments on multiple tracks, the less you don't have to go back and select that, the better off it's going to be. Ladies, let's get into The Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher. Be a little bit over. Now, we're talking about The Punisher. Either way will work. Now, what I did a couple of times, that stinger was very loud, so I went back and I adjusted this gain knob or volume knob on this track to -6 dB. And you can think of dB in terms of every 10 that you would do, every factor of 10 on a normal scale. It's basically a logarithmic scale or an exponential scale. So it's every 3 is a magnitude better. So it's like 10 times at every 3. So basically what I did is I turned it down by magnitude of 2 by going -6. So it's -3 plus -3 is -6. 2 different magnitudes down. So you just got to start thinking in terms of dB when you're editing, and 3 dB is a factor of 10. The Punisher. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes aired on Netflix. Let's see if I can get in there. By the way, I'm using the space bar to start and stop. Episode 4 called Resupply. Episode 4 calls. I don't think I can, because I don't say a D. If there was a definite D there, called, but I just say call support. Episode 4 calls. That's why it's important to enunciate, pronunciate, and know what your words that you are actually saying. Episode 4 calls Resupply. Can't take that out though. Episode 4 calls Resupply. See, I changed tone there too, so I can't just go right into it. I'm going to delete that all just to see what it sounds like. And because this goes into an S sound, I'm going to use the effect fade out. Normally, I don't fade out when I'm coming out of a word that I've edited, just because it's a lot less jarring to the ear hearing it come out versus hearing it come in. It's just the way audio works. But we'll see what it sounds like here. Sure, episode 4 called Resupply. Oh no, that's not going to work. 4 calls Resupply. And as a reminder, I'm having a heck of a time getting started tonight. When we recorded this 2 weeks ago, fade in. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes aired on Netflix on November 17th, 2017, which is still less than a year ago. We're doing pretty good. Season 2 is set to air in 2019. It is still 2018, so I think we're still doing good. Haley, who directed this episode?
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund. She has 55 directing credits starting in 1994. Those credits include a single episode.
All right.
She has 55 direct. She has 55 direct. She has 55 direct. 50.
Thinking what happened here is Lauren actually had a plosive or something going on right when she's saying this. So what we're going to do is, I threatened to do this before, but we're going to go over to the movie studio. And we are going to go right after the bump, right here, when Haley starts talking. And we're going to monitor Lauren's track for a bump. Directed this episode.
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund. She has 55 directing credits starting in 1994. Those credits include a single episode of La Femme Nikita, Riverworld, the TV movie.
All right. I didn't catch that first time around. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete all that. There we go. And I'm going to do... I'm going to select all that. And I'm going to go to Make Movie, Save to Hard Drive, Advanced Options, and Video Replace 001. Instead of going back and rendering the whole thing, which will take about an hour, by the way, because remember, I have all those declicks, the RX declicks on, which on all three of our vocal tracks, which takes a long time to render, basically. You wouldn't think a FLAC would take that long to render, but when you're going in the audio and you're going in and averaging every discrete jump in between the points on the track, it actually takes a while because it's looking for those discontinuities to then smooth out and make the audio sound better. We're going to go ahead and render this. It's not going to take that long because it is only 55 seconds long. Although I'm looking at the, oh, no, I know what happened. I was rendering the whole thing. Go ahead and replace. There's a one. Render options. Render loop only region. I turned that off, by the way, to render the entire track. So that's what it was doing. It was rendering the entire track. Shouldn't take that long for a 55-second long piece. As you can see, it's going down right now. 55 seconds being about 55 seconds of render time is about right. And I misspelled replace. I got that, but it's not going to matter. It's all an internal file naming convention. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to replace this. And this is important to actually know how to do. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. Kind of bugs me that I didn't hear those bumps the first time around, but hey, you don't hear everything. And also, as I mentioned before, with the movie studio, with the noise, denoise abatement, it's different every time there's a run through. So there are things that slip through. Open folder, which is off screen. You can't see it, but it did open the folder. And here's the audio. I'm going to do a truncate silence, and I'm just going to replace that sucker by doing Control-C, and it is roughly 55 seconds long. Oh, wait a minute. I already did some changing of stuff, didn't I? All right. I think this is me. Did this episode. Yep. I'm going to have to delete all of me again, which I can just tell by the waveform is right there. Control-L, get rid of that artifact, whatever that was. Truncate silence there. Who directed this episode?
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund.
I think it goes there.
Episode of The Punisher. This episode was...
Yep. Did I not get it? This episode.
This episode was directed...
Oh, you know what?
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund.
Yep. So this is the part that I need to get rid of. Right there. All right. That's basically how you do. You select, or what I did here. You know what? Did that mash those two together? No, it did not. There's still a separating point there. It basically, I didn't have to have the time sync on because it was just the one track. But usually when I do that, I should have had the sync track lock on, and that would push everything to the right. What this just did is just push whatever was on this track to the right, which was okay because I only have the one track on. But if you're doing multi-track editing, you have to have that sync track lock on when you're inserting, just how I did. So we're going to go ahead and play this all from the beginning and see how it sounds. Now, we're talking about The Punisher episode 4 called Resupply. And as a reminder, all 13 episodes aired on Netflix on November 17th, 2017, which is still less than a year ago. We're doing pretty good. Season 2 is set to air in 2019. It is still 2018, so I think we're still doing good. Haley, who directed this episode?
This episode was directed by Carrie Skoglund. She has 55 directing credits starting in 1994. Those credits include a single episode of La Femme Nikita, Riverworld, the TV movie, an episode of Boardwalk, an episode of The Killing, 2 episodes of Under the Dome, 1 episode of Longmire, 1 of Copper, 1 episode of Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, 2 episodes of Vikings, 3 of Sons of Liberty, 2 of Fear the Walking Dead, 1 of House of Cards, 1 of The Americans, 2 of The Walking Dead, 5 of The Handmaid's Tale, and this episode of The Punisher.
Lauren, who wrote this episode?
This episode was written by Dario Scardapane. I hope I pronounced that right. Who has 10 writing credits starting in 1993, including 1 of Dominion, 6 of The Bridge, 1 of State of Affairs, 2 of The Punisher, and by the way, is a co-executive producer of the show.
And as a reminder, The Punisher is based on the Marvel comic character created by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., and Romita Sr. and Ross Andrew. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll go in and make the correction without it seeming like there has been a correction, just because I want to make sure I get the names right of people. So, I mean, it's their names. John Romita Sr. and Ross Romita. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that here. John Romita. So I'm seeing what this looks like. So this is N. John. And then starting here, it starts with the R. So it's the best way to do it, place to do it, is on an uptick or a downtick. So I'm just going to mark that with a label. And it's, if you pan out, it's really 3 peaks here. There's a couple of double peaks in there. And it's probably the transition from the N to the R. But that's what we got. So that's what it looks like. And then if I go here, we'll go in. That's going to be tough to do. If I can find a place that I can sneak that in, or maybe the down. So it's roughly 3 peaks, but it's a different sort of 3 peaks. Might not be able to do it. The best place, again, is where it's crossing the 0 dB line. And the reason that is, I'm going down here. Reason that is because you can match it better. Oop. Zoom out. Try there. Might not be the best. I'll try there. This will give us an indication if it can work or not. If it does work, great, but it doesn't work and it's close, we can try a different point. So I'm going to get rid of this by right-clicking and deleting the label. So this way I can actually go in and click on to where the labels are and then click delete. It looks like it's going to be a rough transition, but what we can do here, it's going to be as good as it can get. If it's a little rough transition, what you could do is you could select the area and you can go to effect and repair, but repair only works for really discrete portions of the track. And I just undid it. I'm going to redo it. So undo, Control Z, redo, Control Y, undo, Control Z. I'm going to try it without the repair. Might need the repair, but I'm going to try it without the repair. Now we're going to test it with our ears and see what it sounds like. By Jerry Conway, John Romita. That's awful. So that wasn't a good chosen point. So what we're going to do, move that. I'm going to move the point to right there. I don't think that's going to work at all. I think I'm stuck with saying his name wrong. And I'm sorry, John, if you're watching this. I do try to get everybody's names right. It's just difficult for me. Some people got it, some people don't. Might be one of those people that just don't. Okay. Effect, we're going to repeat repair. We're going to try it with the repair this time. It's just too much of a tonal difference. As you can see, it just ramps up, and I might be better to get rid of all of that. Romita. John Romita. Yeah, what's going on here is that's just too much of a big change. One thing I can do. This is getting down to the weeds, folks. And this is what can stall you from editing your show as close as possible. Effect, amplify, just do -6. John Romita. It's just going to be too so close, though. Get rid of that just jump. John Romita. Oh, wow. John Romita, seen on the Marvel comic character created by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr. Wow, that's close enough that I'm going to go with it. On the Marvel comic character created by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr. and Ross. All right, I'm going to get rid of this track. Seriously, how do I? No. Yes. There we go. Going back and forth between editors, sometimes you get lost in everything. All right, that was a very intense view on how you have to go in and change things. And even then, you notice that there was a little kind of blip, which most people are not going to notice. You, since you've heard this now, you will notice that. And you will notice to listen for stuff like that over time in other people's works. But I guarantee you, not everybody's going to go in and do the little fine deletions and manipulations to get that to where it is. Wow. That's when I'm listening to stuff on TV, I hear that all the time. And TV's got it rough because they generally have a short filming schedule per each episode, somewhere between 3 and 10 days per episode. And that includes all the sound and everything. So once they actually get the shots, the physical movement, the visuals down, then you have to match the audio to it. And in some cases, I mean, you never want to hear from the audio department. I've never been involved in this, but I would gather you'd never want to be in the audio department saying, no, we can't do that, because they really want the scene as it is visually, even if the audio is kind of wonky. So you make do with what you got. But in that case, the audio should be backed up, and maybe ADR is a way to get away with it, but sometimes you can't even do ADR because you don't have enough time. So I get it, but I prefer a higher level of quality in my production, say a Netflix level production versus a CW network level production. All right. Now that I have completely taken some time so that you or you're not replaying what I just did in your ears, we're going to go ahead and listen to it one last time. If it doesn't work, I'm going to undo everything, and my mistake is going to be in there. And unfortunately, I might have just insulted somebody. And John, if you're listening to this, I don't want to insult you. I'm sorry, but it is how things go. I try to do this for everybody in the podcast that gets a name wrong. A name is very important to try to get right. Here we go.
Is a co-executive producer of the show.
And as a reminder, The Punisher is based on the Marvel comic character created by Jerry Conway, John Romita Sr., and Ross Andru. Haley, resupply is the title of the episode. We often relate the title of the episode to the theme of the episode. So explain to us, what is with the title? I don't know if you've watched the movie studio versions at all, but I just went through a big diatribe a couple of videos ago about crutch words, and so is one of them. Try to get rid of so as much as I can. Since I'm editing, I've noticed how much I say so. and I've been trying not to say it when I'm actually recording the podcast. Sometimes that leaves for a pause, but I would prefer for a short pause rather than using so. Even then, it creeps in from time to time. I've even noticed while I'm doing these walkthrough tutorials or edits that I actually use so quite a bit too. I'm trying to get away from it. Title of the episode to the theme of the episode. Explain to us what is with the title.
This one's pretty straightforward. Frank needs guns, so they're going to try to get guns and resupply their supply of guns. But also,
this is a so. It's kind of funny that I just said that. This is a so that's got to stay in there. Just by listening to the flow of conversation.
Frank needs guns, so they're going to try to get.
Frank needs guns. They're going to try. I don't know. We can try it.
They're going to try.
Delete that. The problem here is that she's starting a word and she's not hitting it. When you start talking to any word after there's been even a small break like this, usually you come in verbally and you hammer it with your mouth. So I just said so. It's a higher velocity pronunciation of the word. Now, getting rid of that, she's ramping up to it. It might not sound all that great. A trained audio editor, or if you've been doing it for years like me, you can pick those out. Maybe this will sound okay. We'll see.
Straightforward. Frank needs guns. They're going to try to get guns and.
What will help here is if I generate just a little bit of silence. It's 0.2 of a second.
Frank needs guns. They're going to try to get guns and resupply their supply of guns. But also, Anvil needs a new supply of soldiers. So our soldier who clearly is soldiers. So
I'm just doing this because it's I just said it and I'm just using this as an example.
Anvil needs a new supply of soldiers. Our soldier who
again, pick out that so, and I need to create silence. At least 0.2 of a second, maybe 3. I was just going to go 3 there, but we'll see what this sounds like.
New supply of soldiers. Our soldier.
Yep. That was close. That'll be better.
A new supply of soldiers. Our soldier who clearly is
You know what? That's one so that I'm just going to leave it.
Supply of soldiers. So our soldier who clearly is.
Matter of fact, I'm going to go back. Leave that other so in too.
Guns. So they're going to try to get guns and resupply their supply of guns. But also, Anvil needs a new supply of soldiers. So our soldier who clearly is struggling with some post-traumatic stress syndrome.
S's are great. The reason why S's are great is if you screw up a word like Haley just did, and you come back to it and re-enunciate it, you can do a little edit like I just did by selecting a piece of the S on both sides and squishing them together, and it'll sound just the same.
Soldier who clearly is struggling with some post-traumatic stress syndrome.
There's another one. I'll just do that. I might need to add some silence there because she comes back and hits that word pretty hard, but we'll see.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome signs up to join Anvil and get sent back over to Afghanistan, I believe. And he to Afghanistan, I believe.
I'm going to leave that in, but I'm guessing that's Lauren. Let's go back to the tape, right?
Pretty straightforward. Frank needs guns, so they're going to try to get guns and resupply their supply of guns. But also, Anvil needs a new supply of soldiers. So our soldier who clearly is struggling with some post-traumatic stress syndrome signs up to join Anvil and get sent back over to Afghanistan, I believe. And he clearly shouldn't be doing that, which we'll discuss later. But
the first little creak sounded like it was coming. We can tell for sure by going solo, right? So creak came from Haley's track. Can't take that out. But that thump I can take out, but the good thing about this particular version is I can take the thump out without rendering. It was right there.
Room signs up to join Anvil and get sent back over.
And I did that already, actually. Edit, undo, delete. It was right there. And then edit, redo. It's gone. That was a case where I don't need to render replacement audio.
Afghanistan, I believe. And he clearly shouldn't be doing that, which we'll discuss later. But that's also a resupply thing that's happening in this episode.
It is. And Frank mentions that all he cares about is resupply. And he is really intent on getting his guns. Definitely. Actually, I wanted to talk about a little bit about this. Now, Frank is all about the good guys winning. And usually I would think Frank would be okay with the cops or Department of Homeland Security actually getting the shipment, but he decides he needs the guns more than they do. I'm a little conflicted on this. Why would Frank intervene in a gun shipment that was clearly being intercepted?
Because he needs the guns.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this. First of all, he needs guns. Thinking about this. First of all, he needs guns. And secondly, I feel like he was betrayed by the system. Therefore, he doesn't trust the system. So while he's not going to actively go out of his way to
This is a so that I can take out.
trust the system, while he's not going to actively go out of his way to hurt people in the system, he's also going to trust himself more than them.
And this in particular is Wolf's old team. So he doesn't know who on that team is on the up and up and who's on the take.
I didn't think about that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one. Think about that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one. There's no need to keep that stumbling in there. I didn't need it for transition. I didn't need it for spacing. It just didn't need to be there. So in deference to the audience, the listener's time, I'm taking that out. Think about that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one because, yeah, he has no idea. Yeah, Wolf was dirty. One because, yeah, he has no idea. Yeah, because Wolf was dirty. Wolf was dirty. Because Wolf was dirty. I was stumbling around with words. Yes, this isn't ideal because I'm not hammering that word, but it's better than me stumbling around for words. Think about that. That's a good.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one because Wolf was dirty. Exactly. Okay. Haley for the win. Get rid of some of that. Tightening it up. Go with that one because Wolf was dirty. Exactly. Haley for the win. Along the way, though, we have some interesting Since I'm transitioning thought, this needs to be an expanded silence. I'm going to put 3 seconds in there. I wanted to put 5. We'll see what this sounds like. Wolf was dirty. Exactly. Haley for the win. Along the way, yeah, I'm going to put 0.2 more seconds in. 0.2. So I wanted to do 0.5 to begin with. How do I know? Because I've done this enough. So I know how much space should be there. And I know what 0.1 seconds look like. I know what 0.2 seconds look like in this waveform. So I just said so. But that is the way. It's just experience. Saying one thing, transitioning to another. Sometimes I go all the way to like adding a second or a second and a half in. We'll see. I'm going to back it up a little bit. We'll see what this sounds like. With that one, because Wolf was dirty. Exactly. Haley for the win. Along the way, though, we have some interesting interactions. I feel like I want 0.2 more seconds. So that would be 0.7 added in there. And the total break And you can tell down here is 1.3. So let's get close to the 1.6. And of course, I'm not going exactly like if I would expand that all the way. Close to 1.5. And that is what I was saying before. If you're just one person talking, about a 1.5 second is the minimum separation you want for cases exactly like this. So if you do truncate silence on your own podcast, don't do anything less than 1.5 seconds because of this. Dirty. Exactly. Haley for the win. Along the way, though, we have some interesting interactions between Frank and anybody he comes into contact with, including when he goes to get the sweet car that he uses in later, which we'll talk about the car chase later. But as Lauren mentioned, I'm just going to silence that by using Control L. Car chase. You can also, I'll undo that, go up to generate silence. And when you've selected a range, it will generate the silence for that exact number of samples that is in the range that you've selected on the tracks that you've selected too. Our chase later. But as Lauren mentioned in the intro of this show, Frank brings a grenade to a gunfight because he doesn't have any guns. All he does is have a grenade, which I think he knew was a dud, but.
Well, I don't know. It goes.
Oh. Delete that. It was a dud, but.
Well, I don't know. It goes, but the guy in the chair that the people. Okay, so they're stealing from bad people. We can all agree on that.
I don't know if I can shorten that up.
It goes, but the guy in the chair that the people. Okay. The chair that the people. Okay, so they're stealing from bad people. We can all agree on that. They killed a guy. They tortured a guy. Agree on that. They killed a guy. I
think Haley is saying something over Lauren right there.
On that. They killed a guy.
She's saying yes. This is one case where if you're voting just with your ears, you will go back and say, no, I'm going to delete that from the video edit, but I'm just going to leave it in here. And it is Haley saying, yeah. I think I remembered not knowing whether to take that out or not. It's so difficult when you're doing a video edit and then you're doing the audio edit to determine that. If I was just doing the audio edit, I would have had Haley's track here. I would have Lauren's track here. And I would just have done a Control L on Haley's track when she's saying, yep, just because I can't understand it above what Lauren is saying.
All agree on that. They killed a guy. They tortured a guy to death. And they were about to torture another guy, presumably also to death. The guy they were about to torture peed himself. The grenade rolled in.
Delete that.
Himself. The grenade rolled into the puddle of pee, flared up, and then sputtered out in the puddle of pee. I don't think it was a dud.
You think the pee?
I think the pee put it out.
I don't know if grenades are supposed to work that way.
I don't know if grenades work like that, but for the purpose of the TV show, I think what we're supposed to take away from that is that it wasn't a grenade, and the guy and everyone else in the room just got really lucky from a puddle of pee. I think that's what that visual language was supposed to say.
Haley, you're kind of the explosives expert in this podcast. Do you concur with that analysis?
I don't think it was an actual grenade. Maybe it was like a smoke grenade.
Analysis.
I don't think it was an actual grenade. Maybe
Okay, so you can hear some keyboard action in the background. Once again, if I was going to go back and re-render this, I would go ahead and silence. I think it's got to be Lauren doing some Googling at that point. And I took care of it in the silence, but it's still there, right there. And it's a toss-up whether you want to go back and re-render that without the keyboard effect or not. I'm just going to leave this particular one in since it doesn't sound so bad, but generally I do. I want to go back and I want to clean that up. With that analysis,
I think
expert in this podcast, do you concur with that analysis?
I don't think it was an actual grenade. Maybe it was like a smoke grenade or something that didn't go off because of the pee. That might be believable, but I think it was supposed to show that this dude was scared.
Okay. I'm thinking grenades are pretty much waterproof. at least from rain and pee and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, I'll go with
Yeah.
what Lauren said for the purposes of plot.
Again, there's so much that's
Another thing is you can't edit this on the fly. Like if I was using movie studio, I could go ahead, highlight that, silence it, or delete it, and it would actually continue playing. I can't do that on Audacity. You can't actually edit because it's a destructive editor. You can't edit while it's playing. This is of plot.
again, there's so much that these shows get wrong about biology and physics and stuff like that. So I think I know what they were trying to go for in the visual language of the show, but I don't think it works like that.
No, and I would imagine that somebody doing a Punisher show, like the showrunners and the special effects people, would know that the Punisher would know weapons. So I don't. Listener, if you have another idea, Punisher would know weapons. So I don't. Listener, Punisher would know weapons. Listener, if you have another idea, I'm gonna add some silence in there. Go with point 3. No weapons. Listener, if you have another idea that we're not actually grasping at the moment, Michelle, if you happen to be listening to this later and you have an idea, please let us know because.
Oh, agreed. But okay, so I, for another project, was looking up things on costumers for like historical.
I think that was from Lauren's. I remember it at the time when in movie studio. I can't take it out.
And costumers.
It's probably Pike Trickleg. Now this is something effect. This is sneaky. Where is it? Repeat. I don't need to repeat it 10 times, but maybe 5 times. And make sure everything's selected. Out.
Costumers.
Okay. That didn't work. Effect. Repeat 3. I don't think that's going to work. 3.
It's
It's just not a clean S sound.
Costumers for costumers for like historical. On costumers for like historical costumers for like historical costumers for people who do like for historical costumers for people who do historical movies. And these are people who know what they're doing. These are, for the most part, people who do a lot of research and have lots of books and things. And then you look at something like Braveheart, where they are wearing entirely the wrong period appropriate costumes. And these are people who know their business. So why would they do that? And the estimation that people give is that, well, the director, the star, whoever can go over your head and be like, well, I want it this way. So maybe it could be something in that sort of situation where somebody goes up to the fight team, the special effects team, whatever, says, no, we want it to be this way because we want it to say a thing. And they kind of have no choice but to be like, okay, you pay my checks, but I have my reservations, but you pay my checks. Checks, but I have my reservations, but you pay my checks. But then again, who knows? It could be a dud. It could be some other kind of grenade. It could, I don't know. It could be, it was just the shell. It could be some other kind of grenade. It could, I don't know. Other kind of grenade. It could be it was just the shell and it had like fireworks inside. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it had like fireworks. Like fire. Like fire.
Okay. I don't know if you can see this finely or not on the stream, but like has a K sound at the end. It's usually separated from the rest of the word here, like. And then I can tell with that fine waveform afterwards that that's really the start of the next word.
Like.
So if I delete all that.
Fireworks inside. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking he tapped.
It was just the shell and it had fireworks inside. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking he tapped into it and like got all the explosives out, like the gunpowder out or whatever's in the inside of grenades. I actually am not up to date on what's inside grenades these days. And maybe he knew it was going to be, that's what I thought, because Frank doesn't usually misdeal weapons, although it happens, I guess. So maybe just got lucky.
Because again, Frank, not stable.
Just got lucky.
Because again, Frank, not stable, but a decent guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he knew he wasn't going to kill, like if he was going in the middle, that's a good question. Did he know?
Guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Like he knew he wasn't going to kill, like if he was going in the middle, that's a good question. All right. I just spent 5.3 seconds going absolutely nowhere. That's 5.3 seconds that my audience deserves to be back with them. So that is deleted and they get the same end result minus 5.3 seconds.
Frank, not stable, but a decent guy?
That's a good question. Did he know that those guys were being tortured? I don't think he knew when he was preparing to go get the cars. I don't think he knew that those guys were being tortured to death.
I think it was secondary.
But then again, he also didn't let him go, so I don't think they were probably good guys either. So I'm not sure if Frank really cared what happened to him, because again, he didn't let the guy go.
Yeah, good people don't typically have a lot of legitimate business dealings with arms dealers and such.
Well, also you're talking about cars, which might explode, at least on TV, if you rupture a gas tank or something like that, like a grenade goes off underneath a car.
Cars explode on TV if you look at them funny. If you look at them funny.
Yeah, they do. So maybe he was preparing against that. I don't know. Let's move on from this and let's talk about Micro, because Micro's actually getting his hands dirty and he's there in the car theft. He's getting a van and Frank's getting a car. And later on, he's involved in the theft of the guns because it's a two-man job, or so Frank says. And how do you think that Micro's up for
There's
this?
a reason he should be the guy in the chair.
Yeah, he is not suited for this. He's very smart. He's very good at what he does. And he definitely does not have the stomach for this.
No, he doesn't, but we'll talk later about his actions. I mean, at least in the car theft here, he is possibly going to give some of his DNA evidence, and Frank tells him not to.
The whole time, Frank's like, no, you don't puke, you don't puke. I'm there sitting on the couch and like, swallow it, swallow it.
Yeah. All right. So then they go and actually get the guns because Micro hacks into the DHS's plans on this whole heist thing.
First, can we talk about their first attempt to get guns with Turk?
Yeah,
Turk always coming back.
Yeah, he's like the other Claire. Yeah, he's like he's
Hey. Again, I'm going to try to do the S trick, but there is a tonal shift that I heard with my ear. I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah, he's like
It would help if I identified the right change.
Yeah, he's like the other Claire.
I would like to see Turk in a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Just like some big criminal that gets knocked unconscious in like an opening fight scene in one of the movies.
How many times has Turk been knocked unconscious in the Marvel series so far?
Oh, that guy has to have brain damage. I feel so bad for him.
Do you think he has brain damage just because he's a street arms dealer?
No, I think he has brain damage because he keeps getting.
He's a street arms dealer?
No, I think he has. No, I think he has brain damage because he keeps getting head injuries. He keeps getting head injuries that knock him unconscious. That's
We've
super
talked
bad
before
for you.
on this podcast about how bad it is for you to be knocked unconscious. This podcast.
Rid of that double speak there for Haley.
Or on this podcast about how bad it is for you to be knocked unconscious.
Yeah, no, and he's. If I'm of the age where you can no longer like recover quickly from that, he is definitely of the age where you can no longer recover quickly from that. PSA, I had a concussion that resulted in post-concussion syndrome, and it's now incredibly bad for me to get a head injury where I get knocked unconscious. Bad for me to get a head injury.
Just clean that up for Lauren.
To get a head injury where I get knocked unconscious. So he is definitely in bad shape. Knocked unconscious. He is definitely in bad shape.
He is, especially after. He is, especially after all of the times he's been knocked unconscious. Listener, if you actually have been keeping tabs on how many times Turk has been knocked unconscious, let us know because we can then keep a running tally.
I feel like this has to be at least 3 or 4. But yeah, so all Frank is able to get from him is a nice pink gun that was meant for a gangster's daughter's birthday.
I like that he still took it. Like, this isn't what he came here for, but he's still going to take it.
Oh, yeah, no, he needs weapons, even if it's
a single.
Yeah, no, he needs.
Get rid of that first heat.
Oh, yeah, no, he needs weapons, even if it's
a single pink gun with no ammo.
You can get those at any sporting goods store, so I'm scratching my head over why this was handled on the street.
No serial number?
Or scratched off or something. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a 22 Ruger rifle, I think.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I've seen that thing at Walmart before.
I'm pretty sure. But I guess if you go through an arms dealer, you don't have to do...
Hashtag true story. Haley used to work at Walmart, and she has a lot of great stories.
Seen that thing at Walmart before.
I'm pretty sure. But I guess if you go through an arms dealer, you don't have to deal with the paper trail and...
So your daughter can commit felony murder with that and not get caught if she needs to. Like, that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're buying somebody a gun as a gift.
We are not giving advice. This is all pure speculation. Do not take arms advice from a podcast.
No, well, don't be doing that stuff to begin with.
Yeah, don't go buy guns on the street, guys.
Don't.
Or buy guns at all.
Here's how ridiculous it is for the Punisher to have a 22 long rifle. So, first of all, it's impossible to wield. So, first of all, and this is ridiculously small at this point, saying the F. Usually when you say first, it's very projected from your mouth. And this is later on in the F sound. We'll see what it sounds like. Rifle. First of all, it's impossible to wield around. I mean, okay, he's adept at wielding weapons and long range weapons and stuff like that, but it's a... and see what we got there. See if I can combine that successfully. Weapons and stuff like that, but it's a 22.
Yeah, I've shot it. I've shot a 22 before. I'm apparently...
That worked out perfectly. I'm going to undo what I did. I deleted 1.96 seconds of Lauren genning up to say what she's going to say because of the tonal differences between the yeah and when she eventually gets to I. It's like it's the same. It's one of the best splices I've done yet tonight. just taking that in, and it just works so well. I was worried about it when I saw the difference in the magnitude of the waveform, but that just works just great. So there you go. There's a win. Yeah. 22.
Yeah, I've shot a 22 before. I'm apparently a very good shot with one. It has
I think there'll be more editing I need to do, but that first one needed to go.
shot with one. It has like so little penetrating power. Like it has so little penetrating power.
Yeah, and that was another thing I was going to mention is
It's like you can shoot squirrels with that.
you
Yeah.
can kill somebody with a 22, but you have to be aiming in the right spot for that to happen.
Remember when he shot somebody in Mexico from El Paso?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I'm just saying he's a pretty good shot.
Yeah.
True. He's a pretty good shot, and it's pink. So
Yeah.
true. He's a pretty good shot, and it's pink. And all right. So what I did there is I've selected a spot where it's relatively close to 0. And I've deleted, and I can even go in. I don't need to right here, but I can go in and do a fade in just to make sure that there isn't any jarring coming into it. It sounded okay to me the first time. We'll see it if it sounds okay without the in there. True. He's a pretty good shot, and it's pink. So all those things combined as this is the most ridiculous
you have a very
weapon.
visible weapon with no penetration.
All right. I talked about this spot in the movie studio edit, or at least one like it. And this is one of the cases where you have some over talking. You have me ending, you have Lauren interrupting and coming in. It's no big deal. It happens in conversations all the time. In a podcast, generally you try to get that as clean of a break as possibly can. If it's 3 people over talking, there's no way you're going to hear it all. The only reason that works is if there's a lot of laughing and stuff like that going on, where you're not really hearing anything. You just hear the excitement of the multiple people that are talking. Right here, you get me trailing off, Lauren coming on. I would have preferred to have done that edit audioly, where I could go in, and right now I could go back and replace it, but I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. But you go into Movie Studio, and I would create that replacement on both ends, and I would insert that. So you would hear me completely ending my thought, and you would hear Lauren completely starting her thought without any interaction between us. Does that always work? No. It actually shows some energy of what's going on right now. So that's why I'm going to leave it in. But if I was doing that edit in Audacity, that's exactly what I would do. Is I would create some space. I would copy my track to until it ended, and then I would insert Lauren's track where she starts and differentiate the two. And just to show you kind of what that looks like, I'm going to turn the sync tracks on. I'm going to generate some silence right there. I'm going to undo all this, by the way. I'll just do generate 2 seconds. What the heck? So I've created some space, and what I would do is I would copy all of mine, and there would be another track down here, by the way. So I would copy all of mine, and I would copy and then paste it here like that. And that would move all of her stuff up. And then I would copy all of her stuff, like would be on her track down here. And I would insert it right there. And then I would delete this. So in effect, what you've got is me up here. I'm simulating what's going on. You would have me up here and have her down here. And it's all possibly because of that sync track. Now I'm going to undo everything right there. And I'm going to leave sync track on. But that is how I would deal with separating that audio in Audacity. Can't do it in Movie Studio because you see people's mouths moving and stuff like that. You can mask it with a swipe or a graphic of some sort, but you can't leave it in the way it is. And maybe that's what I should be doing, is masking it with swipes, reminding people that this is Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something like that. That's a way that it can be done. Shot. and it's pink. So all those things combined as this is the most ridiculous
you have a very
weapon.
visible weapon with no penetrating power. It's going to be very difficult.
Yep.
Penetrating power. It's going to be very difficult.
Takes it, and you know that's coming back.
He's
at
going
some
to use
point.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Chekhov's bright pink 22. He's going to use it.
Yeah. So that whole thing happens. He fails to get. Yeah. So that whole thing happened. Yeah. That whole thing happened. There was 2 transitional words. I had my choice of choosing so or yeah. I decided to go with the yeah just because the so is I'm anti-so right now. Personal preference.
22. He's going to use it.
Yeah, that whole thing happens. He fails to get the guns, and then Micro has to find the guns, and they find out that GHS is actually. Micro has to find the guns, and they find out that GHS. I'm surprised I did not catch that. That is Haley over talking me. Huh. Now I got to go. Okay. Yeah, that whole thing happens. He fails to get the guns, and then Micro has to find the guns, and they find out that GHS is actually pulling off a heist, or they're arresting the people. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up replacing all that. Now, how do I do that? Is I go back to here. It's about at the, granted, I've got a bunch of truncate silence working there. But all I have to do is look for a place where there's some overspeak. Here we go. And then back up here. That I can tell that's exactly where I need to go. And if I'm not, this is going to be funny, but it looks like the waveform of where I need to go. So I looked for overspeak slightly after the 1940 time code that I'm on over here, like 1940, 19 minutes, 40 seconds. I know with truncate silence, I have reduced that. So we're at 20 and change here. And I was just looking for overspeak, and I found it between all 3 of us. So that is where I was going to separate it before. Right here, though, I'm going to have to do this because Haley, and I could see the barest of the waveform right there. It's just a speck. And as I make it bigger, you can clearly see it in there. So I'm going to cut that out. Cut that out. You watchers of Friday night TV on ABC way back in the day, you know what I'm talking about. Little house action there. And I'm going to make the movie. I'm going to save it to my hard drive. Advanced options. Replace 002. Render. Make sure the loop region is on. And I'm going to render it. Now this is only 20 seconds, so it shouldn't take long at all. And the other reason I cut it out here is because I'm going to render this later as a video. I have not rendered the video yet. So, I said so. That takes it out. And I probably should have done that before. There we go. Control. I copied it before by doing Control C. I'm doing Control V. I'm going back in. I'm doing a Control T to truncate silence. That so is right there that it took out before. I'm going to delete that. Now we're going to see what this sounds like.
Going to use it.
Yeah, that whole thing happens. He fails to get the guns, and then Micro has to find the guns, and they find out that GHS is actually pulling off a heist, or, they're arresting the people. Or arresting the people that are trying
the
to. The
shipment that I guess presumably Turk was going to be working with, because he mentioned the Greeks, and then they mentioned the Greeks.
Well, the Greeks were the ones selling the guns, I believe. They thought Turk was the one that was going to receive them, but he's not. It's a different buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So is Turk now a informant?
He always ends up informing. I can't believe he still has contacts in the underground world.
Just get burned.
Yeah, this guy is like the leaky sieve of the underworld. So
this was interesting in the actual gun heist with Micro and Frank. is they jam their communications by playing really loud music.
They play Donna Summer. It's amazing.
I'm thinking to myself, DHS needs a little bit more secure communications, because for them all to be on the same channel and no backup communication. I mean, they all have cell phones, so start calling each other.
She did. She called Sam.
It took her long enough.
Called Sam. Called Sam.
Doesn't, I can get rid of that.
Called Sam.
It took her long enough.
Well, because she was trying to fix their communications, but she called him. I mean, it was within like.
What I tried to do there, by the way, is she called Sam, not she called Sam, and it just wasn't working right. But there was a little tick in there. I got rid of the tick and just moved on.
She called Sam.
It took her long enough.
Well, because she was trying to fix their communications, but she called him. I mean, it was within like 2 minutes.
All right. And it was still within time that they had, and she had no idea that I'm going to get rid of the all right.
In like 2 minutes.
And it was still within time that they had, and she had no idea that the feed was being looped either. So, okay.
Yeah. The minute they start playing I Feel Love, I started just laughing.
And that's why Micro had to steal the van, was because they needed to actually create that loop. Because we don't see the van that they took again, right?
The van? Oh, the truck.
Yeah, that Micro took from the car theft. I'm just going to point out right here, I'm completely wrong, because the van that they took was literally a van. It looked like an A-Team van, basically, with not the A-Team paint on it. And the truck that they're talking about is actually like a lorry with back on it that you can use to ship goods and pallets and stuff like that. So I'm wrong here. I will admit it. Yeah, that Micro took from the car theft. Micro took the van.
Oh.
And Frank took the car. So they used the van to do the loop so that they could fool the DHS.
Okay. I missed the part that they stole.
I'm glad Haley is speaking up here. DHS.
Okay. I missed the part that they stole a truck as well.
Well, that was the whole reason Micro was there, was to drive the van out. He wasn't there to steal it. I mean, he wasn't there to fight anybody. He was just there to drive.
Gotcha.
But then I got to talk about this, guys, because this is awesome for a guy. I mean, I was on the elliptical. I saw this. Okay, what I'm going to do here, it's been over an hour. I'm going to stop this stream right now. I'm going to take a 2-minute break, and I'm going to come right back and try to finish this before I record Get a Geek tonight, in at least this segment before I record Gonna Geek tonight, and then finish the rest off later tonight. But that's where we're at, 21 minutes, 55 seconds in, and I will save this. Should have been saving all along. I didn't. You have to be stopped when you save. And that is where we're going to pick back up in the next video. If you have any questions, please let me know at Stargate Pioneer on Twitter. StargatePioneer@GonnaGeek.com is my email, and you can always comment down below later on the YouTube channel. I have noticed some people popping in and out of the live stream tonight, but nobody's left a comment in the chat. They can always leave a comment in the chat. You can always leave a comment in the chat, and I will answer your question live. And if not, please give me a time code of what you're talking about in the video that you are responding to, and that way I can direct specifically what's going on. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in just a second. Bye.